She adopted a homeless 10-year-old boy, then found out who he really was. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It danced off the roof of the old red brick shelter like a whisper, barely noticed inside where volunteers sorted blankets and boxed meals. Charlotte, wrapped in a tan trench coat, stood still in the doorway, eyes locked on a small figure curled on a bench near the heater. His hoodie was soaked, his shoes mismatched, and his hands clutched a worn notebook like it was treasure. The boy didn't look up, but Charlotte saw him. She'd come to donate supplies, not adopt a child. Not today. Not with her work deadlines and half-renovated apartment. But something in the way he stared into the heater's glow. It burned into her. "What's his name?" she asked softly. "We don't know," replied the woman beside her. "He won't speak to anyone. Been here 3 nights. Just writes in that notebook." Charlotte walked closer. She knelt. "Hey," she whispered. "I'm Charlotte. You cold?" The boy looked up, hazel eyes, too old for 10, too quiet for his age. Then a nod. That night, she couldn't sleep. His eyes haunted her. Not with fear. With something deeper. Like he knew more than any child should. By morning, her decision was made. Papers were signed. He came home with one small backpack and that same notebook. No name, no birth records, no history. Just the silence. And that stare. She named him Ethan. It felt right, but nothing else about this felt normal. Ethan didn't speak. Not for days. He would sit on the windowsill watching cars pass, sketching symbols and places Charlotte didn't recognize. His nightmares were sudden and violent. Once she found him in the hallway, frozen, whispering numbers in his sleep. And yet, he always knew where the missing TV remote was, where she had left her keys. He memorized the grocery list after a single glance. He fixed the old coffee machine on day 4. Still, there was no laughter, no play, just puzzles, codes. The quiet hum of something Charlotte couldn't name. Then one morning, she opened his notebook and froze. The sketches weren't random. They were blueprints, coordinates, names of people she had never told him about. Her father's military ID, her late brother's middle name, etched in perfect handwriting. That night, she sat across from him on the kitchen floor. "Ethan," she said, voice shaking, "who are you?" He blinked, and for the first time, he answered. The kitchen lights buzzed faintly above, casting a soft golden hue over the worn, checkered floor. Rain tapped lightly at the window, like nature itself was holding its breath. Charlotte sat cross-legged across from Ethan, barefoot in her pajama pants and an oversized college hoodie. Her heart thudded too loudly in the silence. Ethan sat opposite her, back straight, legs tucked neatly beneath him, that same navy blue hoodie draped over his thin frame. The notebook rested between them, open, undeniable, filled with symbols and secrets she couldn't explain. The air was thick, like something sacred had entered the room. Not fear, exactly. Something stranger. Charlotte could feel her palms grow, damp as she studied him. The boy who hadn't spoken in over a week. The boy who now looked her in the eye with a calm so unnatural it made her breath hitch. The humming of the fridge seemed louder. Even the rain felt quieter. "Ethan," she said again, more softly now. "Where did you learn those things?" He tilted his head slightly, like a curious cat. "They're memories," he whispered. His voice, it wasn't cracked with nervousness like she expected. It was measured, like he had practiced every word before he said it. "I didn't learn them. I remembered them." Charlotte stared, trying to comprehend. "You're saying you remember this?" She pointed to the drawing of the military base. "These coordinates?" Ethan didn't blink. "That's where the accident happened. The temperature in the room dropped, or maybe it just felt that way." Charlotte rubbed her hands together, her mouth dry. "What accident?" He looked down, flipped to a page near the back, a single date written across it. March 17th, 2014. Charlotte gasped. That was the night her brother's plane crashed. The night the military called it a malfunction. A closed case. Ethan kept his gaze low. I was there, he whispered. Not as me. But I saw it all. I remember screaming, fire, metal, folding in the air like paper. Her heart began to race, pounding in her ears like a war drum. Ethan, she started, but the words failed. Her. She felt like she was floating just above her body, stuck in that moment. She looked around her small kitchen. Familiar, safe, yet now it felt like a theater for something beyond. Ethan reached forward, turning the notebook again. This one, he said, pointing to a crude drawing of a watch. It belonged to a man named Elias. He didn't make it out. Charlotte felt the blood drain from her face. Elias was the name of her brother's co-pilot, a name never published, a name she hadn't spoken aloud in years. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the boy's face, and in that split-second flicker she saw something impossible. Not fear, not innocence, recognition. He looked at her not like a boy meeting his guardian, but like someone who knew her, like someone who had always known her. Then he said it. Quietly. I didn't come here by accident, Charlotte. I was sent to find you. Her breath caught. Sent by who and why? The candle flickered on the counter behind them. A siren wailed somewhere far off in the night. But in this moment, this exact moment, Charlotte felt it. This wasn't just about adoption. This wasn't just about a second chance. Something, or someone, was reaching across the boundaries of life itself, and Ethan was only just beginning to tell his truth. It had been a Tuesday. One of those cold, gray mornings where the city seemed to move in slow motion. Charlotte had taken a wrong turn while driving home from a client meeting. She remembered it clearly, not because of the weather or the detour, but because of what she saw on the sidewalk as she passed an old downtown church. He was sitting on the steps, hunched over, his backpack clutched against his chest. A janitor was yelling at him from the side, telling him to leave. The boy didn't argue, didn't cry. He just stood up slowly, like he'd done this dance 100 times before. But it was the way he looked at the man, without fear, without anger, that made Charlotte pull her car over. She watched through the windshield. His shoes were wet, his hands red from the cold. Something in her chest squeezed. She opened her door and called out, "Hey, you okay?" He didn't answer, but he didn't run either. When she walked closer, she noticed the dark smudges on his jeans, the tiny cuts on his wrist, and how tightly he held that notebook. "Do you have someone you can call?" she asked gently. The boy said nothing, just looked down and shook his head. That was the beginning. She took him to a diner first. Sat him in a booth and ordered grilled cheese and tomato soup. He didn't eat right away. He stared at her with those big, hazel eyes, watchful, like he was calculating everything she might say next. Finally, he spoke. Just one word. "Why?" Charlotte blinked. "Why what?" "Why are you helping me?" he asked, the soup untouched. And she couldn't explain it. Not logically. Not really. She just felt something. Something in his silence. Something in the way he didn't ask for anything. Not even pity. "Because no one else is," she said. Simply. After 2 hours, she called social services, but something gnawed at her as they arrived to pick him up. As the officer led him to the car, the boy turned back, slowly, and stared at her with that same unreadable expression. No goodbye, no tears, just knowing. Like he had expected her. That night, Charlotte barely slept. She kept thinking about his voice, his eyes, his silence. The next day, she called to check on him. They told her he'd refused to speak again, that he wouldn't eat, that he wouldn't say where he was from. But there was one thing he asked before they hung up. He had written it in his notebook. "Ask the woman, Charlotte, if she'll take me home." Her chest tightened. The agency wasn't thrilled. No ID, no background, no known relatives. The boy had shown up with nothing but a few sketches, some odd Latin phrases, and the clothes on his back. Still, they allowed it, on a temporary basis. She picked him up the next day. When she opened her car door for him, he climbed in like he'd done it 100 times, buckled his seatbelt, pulled his hood up. Neither of them spoke until they were halfway home. Then softly he said, "You don't need to be afraid of me." Charlotte blinked. "I'm not." He looked out the window, voice almost inaudible. "Most people are." In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Small things. Her broken microwave turned on again, without repair. Her missing earrings appeared neatly placed on her nightstand. Her dog, who usually barked at strangers, lay silently at Ethan's feet every night, tail wagging gently. He never asked for toys, never asked for TV. He read. He wrote. And sometimes, when he thought she wasn't watching, he'd whisper to the notebook, like he was reciting something, like he wasn't writing but translating. Then there were the dreams. He'd wake up gasping, clawing at the air, always the same words. "It's not over. It's not done." And every time Charlotte tried to ask what it meant, he would shut down. One morning, while cleaning his room, she found a paper tucked behind his bed frame. It was a drawing, a woman, her, in the exact blue pajamas she wore that night, standing in a kitchen lit by candles, with the boy sitting across from her. Jasmine looked up, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and gratitude. "I was so afraid you'd see me differently," she admitted. "But you don't. You love me just as I am." Marcus smiled, his voice steady and full of conviction. "That's what love is. Not about changing each other or fixing what's broken. It's about standing side by side through every high and every low. You're my partner, my equal. Nothing will ever change that." They stayed like that, holding on tight, the weight of doubt and fear lifting, replaced by something far stronger, an unconditional love that didn't waver in the face of uncertainty or hardship. It was a love that saw Jasmine not as someone to be pitied, but as a force to be admired. In that moment, they both knew. No matter what challenges lay ahead, their love would not just survive, it would thrive, powerful and unshakable. And with that promise, they stepped into their future, hand in hand, hearts wide open. The morning sun poured through the large windows of the community center, casting a warm glow over the crowd gathered to celebrate Jasmine and Marcus's story. Friends, family, and strangers alike had come together, not just to witness their love, but to honor their courage and resilience. The room buzzed with excitement, but also a deep sense of respect for the journey they had traveled. Marcus stood at the podium, his usual confident demeanor softened by the weight of the moment. "When Jasmine and I first met," he began, voice steady but heartfelt, "we knew this wouldn't be an easy path. Society tries to write our stories for us, defining what love should look like, who is worthy of it. But today, we stand here to say love knows no limits. It breaks barriers, it defies expectations, and it changes lives." Jasmine took his hand, her smile radiant and genuine. "For years, I hid parts of myself, afraid of judgment and rejection. But through Marcus's love, I found strength I never knew I had. This isn't just our victory. It's for anyone who's ever felt unseen or underestimated. We are proof that your story isn't defined by your challenges, but by the courage you show in living it." As applause filled the room, a local news reporter stepped forward, inviting them to share their story on camera. Jasmine and Marcus exchanged a glance. No hesitation, just pride. Standing together, they spoke openly about their love, the obstacles they overcame, and the importance of embracing vulnerability. Their story quickly spread beyond that day, inspiring countless others to challenge their own doubts and societal prejudices. Jasmine's advocacy work grew stronger, fueled by her personal experience, while Marcus used his platform to amplify voices often overlooked. In the end, their love became more than just a private bond. It became a beacon of empowerment, reminding everyone that true connection is built on authenticity, acceptance, and unwavering support. As they walked out into the bright afternoon, hand in hand, They knew their journey was far from over, but now it was a journey shared with the world, full of hope and possibility. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe for more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? You chose to forget me, Ethan continued, because you thought it would help me grow. Because you wanted me to live in a world where I could just be a boy, not what they turned me into. Charlotte felt her knees weaken, and she dropped into the chair beside his bed, barely able to breathe. Ethan, I don't remember any of this. I know, he said. But I do. I've waited 10 years for you to find me again. The thunder outside cracked so loud it rattled the lamp on his nightstand. Tears streamed down Charlotte's face. She didn't even know why. They weren't born of fear anymore. Not confusion. It was grief. Grief for something she couldn't name, a loss she couldn't explain, and a love she hadn't known she missed until now. I don't understand how I could forget something so important, she whispered. How could I forget you? Ethan leaned forward, gently placing his hand over hers. You didn't forget me, he said, eyes glimmering with something far older than a child should carry. You just forgot who you were. Her lips quivered. Her breath hitched. Then the last piece fell into place. The sketches, the visions, the feeling that her life had been waiting for something, someone. It wasn't motherhood she had walked into when she adopted Ethan. It was a reunion, a return. She squeezed his hand, now trembling. What happens now? Ethan smiled faintly. Now, we remember together. And in that quiet, electrified space, between thunder and memory, between love and truth, Charlotte finally let herself collapse into the truth. Tears, laughter, fear, hope, not as a woman saving a boy, but as a soul returning to its purpose. Charlotte looked down at Ethan's small hand in hers, feeling the steady pulse beneath her fingers, a heartbeat strong enough to anchor the storm raging inside her. The weight of everything she had held back, all the doubts and fears suddenly lifted, replaced by something quieter but infinitely more powerful. I don't care about any of the past if it means you're here now, she whispered, her voice steady but soft, trembling with the fierce truth of it. Who you were, what you've been through, it doesn't change how much I love you, not for 1 second. Ethan's eyes glistened with unshed tears, a fragile smile breaking through, the seriousness that had settled over him for so long. You don't have to say that, he murmured. I've always known you would. Charlotte shook her head gently, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. No, I want you to know it. For every second you ever doubted it, you're not just my son now, you're my family, my heart, and nothing, not even a forgotten past or a secret future, can change that. The room seemed to soften around them, the storm outside fading into a gentle rain, the shadows retreating as the first light of dawn crept through the curtains. In that quiet glow, two souls who had been lost to time and silence found their way back to each other. Charlotte pulled Ethan into a hug, her arms wrapping around him like a shield, a promise, a home. No matter what happens next, she said, voice thick with emotion. I'm here, and I always will be. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. Ethan leaned into her, his small body finally unburdening the weight he'd carried for so long. Thank you, Mom, he whispered, for believing, for choosing me. And in that moment, fragile, fierce, and full of love, they both knew that no matter what mysteries lay ahead, their bond was unbreakable. Love without condition, love without fear. Together, they would face whatever came next. As morning light spilled through the windows, Charlotte and Ethan sat side by side at the kitchen table, a quiet strength settling over them. The night's revelations had shattered the walls between them, but now, with those walls down, something new was rising, hope wrapped in determination. Charlotte took a deep breath, the resolve firming in her chest. Ethan, she said softly. We're not just going to keep this between us. It's time to tell your story, to show the world who you really are. Ethan looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. You mean, share everything? About the past, the choices, and what I am? She nodded, a proud smile spreading across her face. Yes, because hiding it hasn't helped anyone. Not you, not me, but sharing it, being honest, will give you the power to take control. To own your story, not be defined by it. Together, they began planning. A local community center agreed to host a small gathering. Friends, neighbors, even reporters who'd been curious about the quiet boy who had quietly become the heart of their town. Charlotte and Ethan would stand together. No masks, no secrets, just truth. The day arrived with nervous excitement. Ethan stepped up to the microphone, his voice steady, carrying the weight of years but also the lightness of newfound freedom. He told his story, not just of mystery or struggle, but of resilience, courage, and the love that had never faltered. Charlotte watched from the front row, tears shining in her eyes as the room filled with applause. It wasn't just acceptance, it was celebration. Ethan's truth had transformed from a hidden burden into a beacon of hope for others who felt unseen. As the crowd dispersed, a woman approached Ethan, her voice soft but firm. Thank you for sharing. You've inspired me more than you know. Ethan smiled, no longer the shy, unsure boy, but a young man empowered by the strength of his own story. Charlotte wrapped an arm around him, whispering, This is just the beginning. Together they stepped into the sunlight, two lives intertwined by love, truth, and the courage to face whatever came next. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe for more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from?